All right, so this is the second of two videos. Look, this one is examining the principles of good practice in the School of Education and some basics about instructional design and thinking about teaching online. And so this is really just a primer on online teaching. It's meant to support you all, articulate what we hope will happen in classes this summer related to online learning. I want to first begin by reminding you that these are 5 core ideas about what it means to do good online teaching and learning practices. It's their principles of good practice, derived from theoretic instructions and research on online learning, and also learning in general. So, it begins with understanding where students are, communicating clear learning goals, both for a class and for individual sessions, to have multiple approaches to students engaging content, making sure that you had varied learning activities, and we're going to give examples of these as I go along here. And then assessment, and making sure the assessment is present, so you're gathering feedback about how students are experiencing your class and what they're learning as you go along. It's important then that we also understand key terms and definitions. Synchronous approaches to online learning are those things like video, where you're with students all at once, and asynchronous is where things can be done at different times. We really want you to think about using both approaches. You don't have to just do synchronous video. You can think about asynchronous approaches to learning that's augmented by things that are done together with students. We're going to outline some different technology tools available to you. And then we want you to understand that we know you have pedagogical skills. We know that you have content knowledge. And then it's how you integrate that with technical skill and online teaching that really matters. And then, what's needs assessment and how do we go about doing that, goals and learning activities and assessment. This kind of lays a framework for what we hope to really discuss for a minute. Some of you may be aware of approaches to instructional design, and instructional design has taken a huge role in thinking about online learning development. And so these are a few different models, ADDIE model, the Assure model, Gagne's 9 events of instruction, Merrill's model, Kemp's model. I'm not going to go over all those models. I just want you to be aware that there is a whole set of literature and thinking about instructional design that has been applied specifically to online spaces. I think the ADDIE model is the most common that I see people deploying, where you're understanding the instructional goals, you're designing learning activities based upon those instructional goals, you're creating a prototype for how you're going to do things, and you're implementing it, you're evaluating it, and you sort of work this circular dynamic, really with the key being that you begin with your goals and your target audience and what they need to know, and then you design activities related to that. And oftentimes in online learning, you're doing that in advance of a class. We recognize that you're probably doing some of this as the class is going along this summer because you just haven't had a lot of time to prepare, and that's okay. And it's really important that you're learning things, you're making mistakes, it's okay. But hopefully you have some sense of this model, and this really fits with the core principles of good practice that we're really emphasizing. So what does this mean? Well, at the most basic level, it means that we want you to articulate what desired learning is, both for a course and for any individual session you're doing, and then to think about approaches in online spaces that will help facilitate that desired learning, and then how you apply technology to facilitate those activities. And so it's really a combination of, okay, I want us to learn something together as a class. Well, how am I going to create activities that are going to allow us to learn that? And so is that I need to create a video, which is going to introduce a set of concepts. I need to have a discussion board, which is going to help us to understand and differentiate those concepts. And then I need an assignment, which is going to help us to work with those ideas so that we better understand the desired learning that comes with it. And the more you think about, here's what I'm hoping to learn, and these are the different ways I can approach learning, and what are the activities and the ways we can explore content, the better off we are in terms of designing things online. And so that's the most basic level. But one of the challenges with that, right, is that this is a merger of content knowledge, technical skills, and pedagogy. And so many of us have experience with, we come to higher education, we have a lot of content knowledge about how to provide what is the content, the expertise that we want to make sure in our particular discipline. If it's teaching, we know teaching very well, we know the content of teaching. We also know maybe how to teach teaching. Or perhaps we're in counseling, and we have expertise in counseling. That's our content knowledge, and we also have some clear ideas about how we would teach counseling. And now we have to merge that with this technical aspect of the tools that we have to use in a classroom that is online. And so all of a sudden, we enter content knowledge, pedagogy in combination with WebEx, or in combination with Padlet, or with Poll Everywhere. And all of that exists within a learning management system. And so exceptional practice really exists in the merger of content knowledge, pedagogy, and this technical skill. And so adding technical skill to content knowledge and pedagogy might shift our pedagogy a little bit, and it might change the way we think about content delivery. And so it's really a skilled practice, and I want to acknowledge that it takes time and energy to really think through that. So pragmatically, how do we bring these things together? Well, if our goal, right, is the first principle of good practice, and we want to assess prior knowledge, the way we could do that is to get written responses through a discussion board, or to do a needs assessment through SurveyMonkey. So what I'm saying here are pedagogical approaches merged with technical solutions, right? And so if a pedagogical approach is to ask students through a written response, pedagogical approach is to do a needs assessment. A pedagogical approach can be to have chats with students. And then the technical solution to that is a Moodle discussion board, or a SurveyMonkey survey, or a Moodle chat session. And so you're seeing the merger, right, of pedagogical with technical. So learning goals. Well, there are different ways to do learning goals, right? I mean, you could have a pre-recorded video that describes what the learning goals are for this session, or you could write clear goals on Moodle. And so you have written goals, or you have audio goals, and so then there are technical aspects of how you might merge that together. Or third, you have multiple approaches to engaging students. Well, you can do a webinar. You can have a pre-recorded video. You pre-recorded. A way to do that is to use the technical tool of Cultura as a program. You could do a podcast through voice memos, and you could describe things and have people listen to that. Or the simple aspect of a reading and posting it and having a PDF file. There are other ways, by the way, technically to do this. What I'm trying to point out is that there are multiple ways to engage students in content that we might not, we may think about or we might not think about. If we were together, I would probably ask us to brainstorm ways that you can engage students with different ways of understanding content. In fact, we're going to provide you with a Padlet where you can add your own content and discussions as this ends, and you can go there and you can share kind of your reactions to this video. The similar is true for learning activities for students. So, how do you go about having a discussion board where students are interacting related to content? Well, you can use Padlet as a tool. Or you could have a live discussion through WebEx or Google Hangouts, or polling within Teams. All of these things can happen as a part of your discussion, right? But you have to master the technology in order to facilitate the discussion. And of course, that's different than facilitating a classroom discussion. You might want to have a quiz, and so you can run quizzes through Poll Everywhere. And you might even be really sophisticated, and you can embed the polling responses into your Moodle site, and that will allow you to in real time show people the polling results from a quiz. And then timeline software exists. So you want to create an activity for students, and you're looking at the history of education. You can have them create timelines and co-construct those. And literally, timeline here is not meant as a general term. It's actually a very specific software where you can have students collaboratively make a timeline. And then assessment of learning, right? These can be assignments. They can be the famous 1-minute assignment where you simply use a Moodle feedback mechanism and then you gather feedback. You can ask people to do a reflection assignment. You can have a quiz through Google Quizzes, or you could even have students upload videos, which shows how they have mastered a concept. And so there's lots of ways to do assessment, and I think it's just important to plan for that. So this is illustrating concretely to you, well, how do we bring principles of good practice into a session? And most intriguingly, right, is then you want to do it all together. And so this provides you with an example. This is from a class I taught. And what you see here is, where are the principles of good practice? Well, number one, which is assessment, happened through a class chat. Number two, here are the goals for this class session. They're clearly articulated. Number three, there are different ways the content was done. And so you see that there's a mini video lecture. There was a PowerPoint slides. There were readings. And then number four is how do we interact about it? Well, there are Padlets that were provided. And five, in terms of assessment, there was actually a class feedback session that went with it. This is an example of a pre-recorded mini lecture, and so I'm doing it now. It's the same type of thing. This is a slide from that lecture where I tried to make it short. My presence is still important. You as an instructor being a part of it, social presence matters. So you're not just turning a video and then having students run the video. It's them seeing you as an instructor and knowing that you're present, I think, is super important. It's important to note, this isn't captioned on the slide, but there's a little element here which allows any video you create to be captioned, and that happens automatically when you upload it to Moodle through Kaltura. And so it's important that things can be, we think about universal design concepts as well. This is a screenshot example of a Padlet that's embedded into Moodle. And so you see responses of students that they did related to questions that had been created. So this is another example of how you have students interact and content. It's a concrete example. This was embedded in a Moodle site. It was easy for students to access and to add their comments. In order for you to do that, I have created a Padlet. Here's the link to that Padlet that you can actually use. That link will allow you to add your comments to this video, and we can have some interaction amongst our faculty, and we'll see how that works. So take down that Padlet address, or we're going to have a link that comes with this. Finally, what technology tools are available to you. We'll give you a copy of this presentation as a PowerPoint as well. But we have all these tech tools for synchronous video, WebEx and Microsoft Teams and Google Hangout. And while we don't support Zoom, some people use it. And so we have that, and what do these things do? Well, they can be video discussions, and they can be video discussions where you share your screen, you do chat, you do instant polling, and you have breakout groups. So, you can start with the video discussion as the most simple, and you sort of can go all the way to very interactive video presentations that engage people in new ways. And that's learning the technology, right, that mixes your pedagogy with your content. Or maybe you want to do asynchronous things, and so you can do a host of things through our LMS. You can do a host of things through Google G Suite. Or I think that's the name of the Google. It's the sort of Google collection of materials. Kaltura allows you to create your own videos that can be done at different times. Padlet creates an interactive platform that can be done at different times. And same thing with Pull Everywhere, which can be done at different times or synchronously. So my hope is this gives you a sense of tools and kind of where we're headed as a school. It gives you also that this notion that if you're planning a class, you think about the learning goals and you think about the needs of students, and then you plan different forms of content and ways that students can interact and assessment. And that really creates, based upon principles of good practice, how an online course can become a really engaging, meaningful experience for students. Thank you for all your work. We really appreciate it. And we'll look forward to being back together again on our beautiful campus.